The other co-person of this is Ms. Nydia Wolf. She's, as you know, an Irwin Avenue resident. I'm not real sure who else will be sitting up here tonight for half an hour. Quick housekeeping, ladies' room, right here. Men's room, down where you see the light on it, make a right. Fire exit there, and right at the end of the ladies' room, or not the tap hall. And other than that, let's have a good time. We've got questions on the board up here. Read them over if you can see them. These are the ones we're going to start with. If you come up with any other questions that you would like to have asked, please let us know. We can have them written down for you here, or we do plan to have a long question and answer period at the end. So I will turn this over to my co-chair.
Hello everyone and welcome. I am going to introduce who we have here at the table. Jay Loomis is with the Water Department. We have Mike Lurkey, and tell me your...
Acting Superintendent of Water and Wastewater.
Okay. And Chief Scott Kipp, who is acting city manager. Ken Phillips, who's in charge of
Department of Public Service.
everything.
We're all
And we have Patrick with wastewater. Yeah.
Maybe before the night's over, we'll see.
So this is going to be rather loosely organized. We have, as we say, questions up here. And if there are more, we can go through them. And if we have more, I want you to be asking them of the different people up here. And so I guess if you want to stand or sit or whatever you want.
A few more people coming in, so I'll wait. I actually have my son here in the back doing filming for us. With any luck, this will be on the city's YouTube channel, maybe tomorrow. So hopefully we'll be able to get this out to more residents and just we're able to show it tonight so they can at least get some answers.
Well, if you haven't signed in, please do so that we can get you on the email list.
Yes, we do want to have a list of everyone that is here. If we have some way to contact you, then we can, as the construction goes along, we can let you know any updates that are coming up that you should be aware of. We'll start with...
Well, let me just give the scope of the project.
Okay, go ahead.
Give you an idea of what's going on. Can everybody hear me all right if I don't use the mic? All right. So the scope of this project is going to go all the way from Superior Street all the way to Finley Drive, and it's going to include that intersection at Finley Drive that hasn't been completed with all the other roads being done, so that'll be completely connected into the county roads out there as well. The project is going to include the resurfacing of the entire road, and the removal of the road, replacing all of the gravel below it and repacking that, and then putting a new surface on top of it. The other part of this project is the water project, which is going to replace the water main, which is currently so currently we have a 6-inch water main going down Irwin Avenue, or actually 2 of them, and that will be replaced with one 12-inch water main. So your water service should be greatly increased in this area. Part of the hope with this is, as we do these projects, is we want to create a loop around the outside of the city with a larger water main. And so this is part of that project, getting that larger water main down through there. The project's going to start in June. I don't have an exact date on that, and it'll probably run all the way through November 15th, which means most of the road will be tore up during that time. The road will be passable most of the time. There are going to be times, obviously, when you're putting a 12-inch water main underground, that you have to dig a trench down through the ground and put that water main in. But those holes will be filled back in at night, which means you'll be able to drive across of it if your driveway's there or so forth. Now, one of the major changes that's going to happen is from Woodlawn Avenue to the west towards Finley Drive. That part of the road is going to be narrowed by 4 feet. So 2 feet on each side of it. And if you know right now, it widens right there at Woodlawn. And they're doing that for a couple of reasons. One, it saves us a whole lot of money on asphalt now, and in the future when we go to repave it, the same width as the road from Woodlawn to Superior Street at that point. And so there's a few questions we have for some of the residents, especially in that area, about what we're doing and what you want to see when it's all done. And we'll get to that as we get along further into it. But so everything from Woodlawn to the west, because we're narrowing the road, it'll be 2 feet on either side of the road that'll be narrowed. So it's not just moving the road one way or the other, it's actually bringing it in to make narrowing. It'll give, part of what the grant money request is that we do something for water runoff and to reduce water runoff and so forth. So by losing 4 feet of road for that distance would greatly decrease the water runoff, putting more green space in for the water to soak into the ground rather than running into storm drains. And so that was an important feature and part of what we were trying to do with this project. So everything from Woodlawn to the west, your driveway approaches will be replaced as a result of them being longer. So, but everything from Woodlawn to the east, there's no plan to replace any curb and gutter in that area. And so none of the cement work on the outside of the asphalt will change. Except.
So there's 4 houses. There's 4 houses that your water service box is actually in your driveway in that area.
Yeah.
And if they, so when they tear up your driveway to replace your water service, they will replace
So,
your water.
right, and so currently, with the water main project, that means there will be new pipe put in from the water main to the water shutoff that's near the sidewalk or the driveway or the curb stop as it's called. That will also make sure that we remove any lead pipe or any lead solder, right?
The lead goosenecks that come from the water main that go to the curb stop, the state is required quite a bit. The laws are really becoming very restrictive as to getting the lead out of the water systems. That was part of this project, is making sure that we get those lead goosenecks out, or any lead goosenecks that are there. A lot of it may be copper, some of it may still be lead, but those are going to be replaced with this project. So that'll take care of that problem. And there are laws that we have now that we're really kind of working with. And by 2025, we have to have all of these identified. So within the entire city as to what is lead service and what is copper service, or the type of service that comes off of our water main. So it'll be nice with this project, we'll be able to take Irwin Avenue off of that, have to find out list. So that'll be a big help to us.
And we're still working on some other parts of this project with the state, with some of the state requirements. There is a possibility for some residences, due to the lead fittings and so forth that are in there, that we could end up having to do some services all the way up to the house, but I don't know that's going to happen. It's still something that we're still working out with the state, and whether or not it's a requirement for that to be done at this time. Let's see what else is I have here. So, deliveries, garbage service, all of that stuff should not be interrupted by the work unless there's a specific thing being done in a certain small area at the time that wouldn't allow a truck to pass or so forth. But part of this project is required that the road remain open to emergency vehicles. So I have to be able to get an ambulance, a fire truck, police car down there at any given time. Again, that might be some rerouting at certain times because they have a hole in the road that we can't get by and we have to go around the block the opposite way. But that doesn't mean we wouldn't be able to get to your residence. And we would know that if they're working in those areas, those days when that might be happening. So there is some possibility of what I was told that they might do some with mailboxes from Finley Road, or from Woodlawn to Finley, where they're going to put them in a gang-style post so that they'd be together, and you're going to have to go to a certain location to get the mail, just because of the ease of doing that in the meantime, because of the mailboxes that you have out there. So I can't answer that exactly right now when it's going to happen, but that was one of the things that they pointed out to me. As I said, it's going to be difficult to get through at times because of the work, but at night, all the holes will be filled in. You should be able to go back and forth down the road to get your house, no problem. So the houses from Woodlawn on down to Finley as well, when they replace the curb and they replace your driveway approaches, there's going to be approximately 5 days more than likely that you won't be able to use your driveway during that time. We will figure out ways to make exceptions for you to be able to get in and out, whether it's parking on any of the side streets, whether, you know, like church or even Dalrymple, Woodlawn, any of those places that we can find that you can park overnight, so you're out of the way, maybe not on the road. Or if you're just gonna be on the road overnight out in front of your house when they're not doing construction, you could be on the road out in front of your house overnight. You know? So, but when that cement gets poured, it's got to cure for a certain number of days before you can drive on it. The hope is the approaches and the curb get done at about the same time. There is the possibility that the approaches or the curb work gets done, and then the approaches get done another day. So you'd have 5 days you couldn't use it because of the curb work, and then you'd have 5 days you couldn't use it because of the approach. So you could end up with 10 days total. We're going to do the best we can to keep those together as close as we can, so it's limiting the lack of use to the driveway. And that's really going to be your only limitation, is those people from Woodlawn out that we have to replace, or I think those 4 other locations where we got to do the curb stop in the driveway. In those places would also have to have that done. I guess we can start on questions from there. Unless somebody has any questions about what I said so far.
On a new topic, I'm concerned about the amount of traffic from semis that go up and down this road. There's a lot of them, and I didn't realize that before we moved.
Well, and that's always a real issue. The biggest problem that we have with that is these are considered major streets, which means they have to comply with state law, and we cannot restrict traffic on them. If we do restrict traffic on them for semis, they don't become major streets anymore, and we don't get this funding that we're getting to redo these roads in the future. And so they wouldn't get repaved unless they're built to the standards to handle the semis as required by law. And
to handle the semis?
they're built to handle the
Because my
semis.
house shakes.
I know, right?
Never did when we first
I'm
moved in.
not saying they handle the semis well, but per state law, the requirements are there, and the state builds them to that standard. But we wouldn't be able to get the grant money that we get for the major streets if we didn't allow the semis.
The semis seem to have a habit of not obeying the speed limit. They go about 50 miles an hour on bad roads. So the brand new pavement will go at least 50, 55 miles an hour. How are you going to address that?
I will have to have officers out there more often. That's one thing we need to talk about too.
As often as in the past?
Well, it really depends on the manpower I have at the time. We usually have 2 officers on the road, and they're busy on calls. They don't get out there as much. And obviously, the condition of the road, we don't have a lot of speeders out there right now, so I don't worry a lot about that.
The trucks do. They do.
This is the first I've heard about the truck traffic on Irwin Avenue. Honestly, I didn't realize that was
When the bridge was out on 99, many of them found the route to Homer, and they still
No, it
are
was
using
before
it.
that. They made it a truck route. It was never a truck route when we first moved in.
Yep.
And then they made it a truck route, and then they started coming.
Yep.
Even
Now,
before the bridge was done.
just a second. One of the things I wanted to ask about, since we're talking about speed, is there any interest in increasing the speed limit, especially
Yes.
from Woodlawn out?
Yes, it used to be 35 out there, but then it was determined that because the little children at St. John's School had to walk, it's dangerous. But you go up North Eaton Street, they're a lot closer to Eaton Street than they are on Woodlawn, but
Well, and the
what
real,
I'm saying is,
right.
are you gonna have a bicycle lane, or you have parking on one side of the street? I don't know, that may affect the speed limit, see, so, at
You
least you
haven't got-
didn't get up to 30.
I haven't got to those questions yet.
We don't have parking on both sides anyways.
Well, right, and I really haven't got the question about parking either, because that was going to be one of the other questions we get to, but.
Because what they do in the area on the bike, they put a bicycle lane, but nobody uses
Right.
it.
Yeah.
Is it parking, is it bicycle, what is it, you know?
Well,
On here.
let me explain the complications to that and why that happens. So when we do those street projects, and Erie is another example of a major road because it's a connector that goes out into the county. If we use state funding to do those roads, the state will pay for the entire road except for the parking lanes. So we take the parking lanes out so the city doesn't have to pave a whole lane down the side of the road to say it's a parking lane. And so we put no parking the whole way, and then eventually over time those no parking signs seem to disappear, people start parking there, and that's why that happens on a lot of roads. Michigan Avenue, Michigan Avenue is so wide and it has no parking on it in a lot of areas. Technically that's 1 lane. Even though it looks like 2 lanes and people use it as 2 lanes. That's 1 lane. Because of the width, they can't do 2 lanes there. But we can't put parking lanes because the minute we put parking lanes, the city's responsible for that. The same thing happens downtown. We have those parking lanes. The parking lanes that were bricks downtown, the city paid to have those parking lanes done because they are obvious parking lanes. We couldn't take them out. So that's what happens a lot when we do these projects that are involve the state. We have to take the parking lanes out in order to get the state funding to do the entire road. So the city doesn't require to do part of it. So part of that question then coming up would be, we talk about speed, what about parking? This is a little different because this is a SAW grant, it's not a MDOT grant. So we don't have the same requirements right now. In the future we might, if we resurface it, but obviously that's a ways down the road, hopefully. And so, do the residents from Woodlawn out want parking on the street? Many of you have longer driveways. You don't really park on the street in that area, but I guess...
On the one side, which is the north side, they can park. On the left side, on the other side, the south side, they cannot.
Right. But do you want parking on the street by your house?
No.
What about out by the church?
They park in front of the street.
Like if they're having events, I know fish fries are only a certain time.
Right.
And you could probably overlook a few cars in it at that
Right.
point, but funerals, I mean, the church probably is not going away.
I mean, my suggestion probably would be to keep parking on there and do parking on the north side all the way from Superior Street out to Finley Drive. So that option's there, if everybody's comfortable with that.
That's what it is. It's on the,
Yeah.
it's on the
Okay.
one side.
Yeah, I'm just suggestions that we can do between speed and parking and so forth. Now, one of the things when we're talking about the speed, I really don't have an issue with moving the speed limit up to 35 from about Woodlawn out, partly because we're going to have 2 more feet on either side of the road between the curb and the sidewalk. So that pushes the civilians walking away from the road a little more, so speed isn't as big a concern. I heard a lot of people saying yes, I've heard a couple no's.
I'll go the opposite way though, and I know I've got one of your police up, but we've got a lot of young kids right where we live right now. So people that are coming from Homer,
Right.
I mean, I can tell you, I may have thrown a stick or two in the road from time to time or yelled at people, but when so if they're coming 35 up,
Right,
this
they're
way,
not going to slow down.
they're not slowing down, and especially now that, I mean, I've got 2 little ones, 2 doors down has 2, Aaron's got 2, we've got quite a few, and again, yeah, you want to keep your kids away from the road,
Right.
but that would be my only issue. If you leave it at 25, people do 35, 40 anyways.
I know. And I was here when they lowered the speed limits. I can't tell you why, but we dropped the speed limit on every road in Albion except for the state highways down to 25. So there's no place in Albion that I'm aware of that's over 25 that's not on the state highway. So. All right, I'm hearing 25 and I'm hearing parking on the north side.
What about
30.
30?
Why can't we go in between?
We can.
We can go 30.
We can go 30.
Then they'll go 30.
27 and a half.
Is it the speed limit or the road we're driving on?
Also, when he mentioned it, I'm glad he mentioned that, coming in from Homer, there's no gradual, you're going from 45 down to 25, just like that. There's no 35 in between. There needs to be, you know, maybe in front of the church, you're 35, and then when you get the houses, that oil well road that goes there, then you're down to 30. In other words, have a instead of a sudden thing, have a gradual.
Just playing off what the gentleman here was saying, on the approach coming in from Homer, could they possibly put up, you know, children at play signs or something like that, so that they know they're coming into a residential area with children?
We can look at that.
Just a speed, you know, your speed reduction sign.
Right. Yeah.
Warning.
Yeah.
Gary?
So I'm thinking, when I'm looking at it, I'm thinking 35 all the way up to about Irwin Avenue Vet Clinic, and then slowing it down to 30 about there, and then slowing it down to 25 when you get Woodlawn, Arundel area. I mean,
That sounds good.
Yeah.
I think, Scott, the other thing is with Gary here, there's nothing, like you said, when you come in from Homer, where it's 45 to say, like someone just said, our speed is reducing ahead. It's like, all of a sudden, boom, it's 25. So maybe on the county side, before you get into the town, hey, speed is reducing up ahead.
That'd be the guy in the back there.
That's right.
That's something we can look at, yeah, I'll definitely, I'm taking notes, so yeah.
It's also like that at Harrington School, it says 25, but then part of the streets in the city, part of it's in the township. When does it go to 55? You don't know.
Right.
And that needs to be made clear, but we don't want any confusion with people around those roads.
Right. Yep.
This is off the subject.
Sorry.
I got a call before I left home tonight. I have a neighbor in the west side that needs a new storm drain. But if you're going to do what you're going to do, that should resolve all that, correct?
About where we're talking?
903 Irwin Avenue.
I know there were some issues with storm drains in that area, and I'm looking at that, I believe. Obviously, all those storm drains are going to be adjusted in when they do that work, but it's not going to really change a whole lot of the drainage and the shape of the drainage in the area. Other than the quantity of water being drained is going to be significantly less with 4 feet of road now. So,
And the way the road is, I'm sorry, the way the road is designed is where those storm drains are, you'll see on the print where there will be slight rises and dips all the way down. You probably won't see that driving it, but that drainage is planned for the entire length of the road so that you don't have the puddling or ponding.
and what you're going to have with this too is because they're going to take the subsurface out, you're going to have a whole new surface level, the way it all should be shaped perfectly, and the blacktop one on top of it. It's not just mill and fill, so you're not left with what you currently have. When I say mill and fill, you're not just peeling off the top layer and then putting a new layer down. You're actually taking the subbase out and putting a new subbase in, and so you can shape it and grade it and make it all go where it's supposed to go, even if it hasn't in the past.
Good. I have one more question, which is a lead-in to the first question. I got another call from a neighbor. They are planning, well, first of all, they wanted to know when it was going to start. They wanted to know what at, because they are planning to get a new roof and new siding on their home.
Okay.
So they have to be able to tell the people when to do it.
Right.
So that.
The best I can do is probably starting in early June, and what the engineer told me was there's a good chance that they're probably going to pulverize the road right away, which basically means do what they did to Erie a couple years ago when they redid that, which turned it into a dirt road almost immediately. And so that's probably going to happen quick because one of the first things you have to do is put that water main in. And so they're going to have to dig it up to get the water main to it.
The other thing that Whiteman and Associates said, what Mickey Bittner has said to us, is that you may not see contractors working on something, but you can trust that they are, because they get paid by the foot, not the job. And that's important to realize that if they lay 100 foot of pipe, they're being paid by that foot. So it's beneficial to them to get that in as quickly as possible. It's beneficial for them to do X amount of feet per day because they're being paid by the foot. So it's not something that can be, a contractor's going to lose money if they allow it to drag out. So that it's going to be as quick as possible because that's how they make their money. That's how they turn the profit to do what they're doing. So I hope that kind of helps too. And can we give you a time frame? I think the time frame that's been talked about is probably 4 to 5 months. Total time?
June through November 15th, yeah, what they said.
So once they pulverize the road, then when would they start paving? Would they start at the east?
You won't have any paving done until October.
Wednesday.
Because you're talking storms, you're talking water main replacements, service replacements. There's an entire infrastructure under the road that needs to be done. So that's going to be the first month or two in digging those trenches and laying that line, connecting the services. There's a lot of under work that has to be done.
And it's difficult. I know that when we did Erie a few years ago, you know, that was a mess at times. When you have storms and rain, it becomes just like any other dirt road. It just doesn't hold up. They do best they can to patch that up as they go along, but it's not a real priority to get that done. So it's going to be rough for a while. Then it dries out in the summertime, and it's going to be dusty. There's going to be a lot of dust created. There was on Erie when they pulverized it the same way. And we went with Erie. They ended up going a whole year with it pulverized before they actually repaved it the next year. So that was even worse. But
I have a question, but I wanted to mention too that our county commissioner, in case you didn't know, is Gary Tompkins. He is here. And I think I see only one council person, Len Reed. Thank you for being here. And my question is, will the road grade be raised or lowered in any way?
Well, the grade from on the east grade won't change, obviously, because the curb is not being removed. I'm not saying the grade will change the other way, but the new curbs are being put in. It'll be graded where it needs to be. There shouldn't be a lot of change in the actual current height of the road, but there could be some changes as a result of the actual curve of the road and trying to drain the road into certain areas where the storm drains are. So it might be a little different from what it is, but it shouldn't make a big difference to anybody's individual driveway or anything like that.
We had, you, myself, and Minnie had discussed it at our first meeting. I was wondering if you could explain to the folks about the sewer of the east end.
Yeah.
I see how that works.
Should I get a chair?
Between Eaton and Superior, is that what you're saying, the section that doesn't?
Yeah.
So you want to touch on that?
I'll start it out.
I mean, from our understanding and talking to the engineers, there's no sewer underneath Irwin Ave from Eaton Street to Superior Street.
Wow.
And there's 3 houses
Basically,
that are made, or 4? That are,
depends on the south side or north side.
okay, but there's 4 houses that all go into one sewer, and that's not, we don't own that sewer.
It's private.
It's private and goes to Crandall Street sewer.
And they're not happy with it.
Correct.
And we understand that, but the discussion came about, what do we do? And then we started thinking about, in the short term that we've been involved, there's a 200 to 300 foot run from those homes down to a new sewer main, and that would have to really be looked at. Is that even feasible to have the drop that's necessary to get to where you need to be if we put in the expensive sewer and go through the permitting and do all of the things that we need to do with the state, DEQ, to put in a sewer line in the road for 3, 4, 7 houses. And then not knowing that everybody would want to really hook up because of the expense. And we were assuming, even as we were talking about that most of those homes on the south side, their sewer probably goes out the back. So not only would we have to have you run all the way to Irwin Avenue, you'd have to move your entire, your structure in your home to come out your front or go around the house. And when you start looking at the drop and the elevations and everything else, it just became a nightmare.
Well, the engineer's expectations would be a minimum of $10,000 to put that line in out to the road from your house. So
Per house.
Per house. Per house. Yeah. And so when you consider what they have, probably the better way to look at it is for the houses to get together and figure out how they can fix what's there.
So the houses from North Eaton Street to Superior on the north side, do they go into like drain into Eaton Street to Clinton and so forth?
Yes.
Okay, so there's nothing going down?
Right.
There's nothing under the road on Irwin Ave.
So are you saying you're planning to put something there or just leave it like it is?
Just leave it like it is.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Have we had any, on the north side of Irwin Ave, in that section, have you had any problems? Or is it,
No.
we've never really heard of many sewer problems except for the south side houses.
The bill, the sewer bill.
Yeah. I pay them too. I understand.
And that kind of brings the question to, there's a small sidewalk. All of the sidewalks that are going to be replaced, the crosswalks, will become, if they are not, will become ADA compliant. If you go to the end of Eaton or Crandall? Clinton. You go to the end of Clinton, there's a small walk that goes up a really steep hill that connects that. The plan is to take that out so that you would basically be using the north side of Irwin Avenue. In order to put that in and make it ADA compliant, we would have to lower that entire front yard to regrade it and probably drop it about 2 feet and then grade it back up to the yard to just have that one crosswalk that's not ADA compliant right now. So you would have to basically go to, on the south side, you would walk to Eaton Street to cross back over to Irwin if you needed the ADA compliance. Of course, you're always going to have driveways that are across, and I know the police chief is here and you don't want to jaywalk, but that's really what we'd have to look at doing is taking that out.
The south side sidewalk will be taken out totally?
No, not the entire sidewalk. If you go...
when you go across the street, there's a little up that goes to the sidewalk. That little part will be taken out going in. So it won't be a crosswalk here.
But the sidewalk on both sides will stay.
Okay.
It's just a crosswalk.
Will they add any more sidewalks?
The sidewalks that are going to be repaired right now, as I understand it, are going to be based on whatever happens as far as being torn up and replacing the service lines. The scope of the project doesn't include new sidewalks down the entire run.
Well, for those that don't have any sidewalks.
No, there's no plan for additional sidewalks. No, not near, we're not putting one in your yard. No, that's not there. So there's no additional sidewalks. And we have it on the north side all the way out as it is, all the way to the church, to the Catholic Church, I believe.
Yeah.
Got a question here. Is there plans to replace the sign? You can't read the no parking signs or the...
Yeah, all signage will be replaced.
We need a nice city limit sign, and stuff, okay.
All signage will be replaced.
I'm a little confused. You're saying the sidewalk on the north side will be replaced? Oh,
No,
it'll stay.
it'll stay.
Do you know if a contractor's been hired?
not yet.
Are bids still out? Do you know?
Have they even gone up yet? I don't know where we are with that process right
That's a
this
question
moment.
from home.
Yeah, I don't think they've gone up yet. Yeah.
There are several sidewalks on that north side, not quite that and it's a hazard to walk.
We have a lot of problems in the city. One of the things that we've looked at doing, and Emily is here tonight, she is our GIS specialist in town. We're putting together what we're calling an S-squared program. Through the use of cell phones and other social media, those types of things can be pegged for us on our GIS mapping systems by individuals that want to participate in doing that, so that we can do an entire city assessment of all of these bad areas of sidewalks. What we've historically done in the past is we find out we have a bad one, or bad area, we run out and fix it, but we have thousands of bad areas. So we really need to have a more cohesive plan as to how we're going to approach it before we continue to keep throwing at it. I think understanding what the problem is will help us solve the problem faster, if that makes sense. So we do know that there are bad areas, and it's not to say that some of those bad areas won't be fixed. If they see them as they're going, they can just plow them up and put it in.
But if you're adding green space, it seems to me like you would almost have to replace something to feed everything.
In some areas it will be made right, but as far as other areas, you're going to probably wonder what in the world were they thinking by leaving this piece here. We do have the ideas to get there, but we're still working on that. So, but we are aware of it. It's a major problem throughout the entire city.
And so everybody knows, we actually have two major street projects going this summer. Not only is Irwin Avenue being redone, but North Street is also being redone from Eaton Street to Burr Oak Street.
Wow.
The initial project was Irwin Avenue was only going to be done from Woodlawn to Finley. And that was because we were using our our grant that we get every 4 years to do major streets. And that's all that grant would have covered was from Woodlawn on out, and that wouldn't include any water mains and so forth. Luckily, Dr. Mitchell, when she was here, put in for this grant, which was turned down in 2017-18. And then last year, when I was interim city manager, it came up again, and they said, guess what? We want to give you this money. We got money left over. And I said, great. So we put back in for it again and got it. And so once we got this grant, which is really a project to do the water main, but to do the water main, we have to tear up the road, so the road gets redone as well. So this is a little bit of a different type of grant, and it's called a SAW grant, and I don't know what SAW stands for, but
Storms, sanitary.
something with water, yeah. Sanitary water or something like that, yeah. But this is through MEDC, not MDOT, so this is an MEDC project, but we're still using the same engineering firm that we generally use for the city, which is Whiteman and Associates. But and so North Street will be somewhat in the same condition during the same time, because that's going to be being done just similarly, but that's more of a what we call mill and fill type project where they just peel off the surface and resurface it. From Eaton Street to Borough Street, so the majority of the street. When you get past Borough, it's not quite as bad over Clark Street. So.
Would they straighten out that jog at Clinton Street?
Probably not.
Okay. We know what it is.
Right. Just being a mill and fill, there's really no change to the roadway surface, so there won't be much done differently there, like it is on Irwin, where we're doing a complete road.
How thick will this asphalt be in the base? Will it be holding up to all these semis that are going to be up to?
Per standard, I think it's 4 inches. Is that right?
That's
yeah, right. And that's a standard base that, and with the sub base below it, designed to handle semi-traffic.
Okay.
So that's going to, North Street also is going to be starting in June then?
I don't have an exact date on that, but roughly, yeah.
roughly, yes.
Right. And just so you know, I'm planning on having a second meeting on the 26th. It's probably going to be up at the Opportunity School now to cover both these projects, and the engineer will be there, and we will probably have plans for both these projects at that meeting, so you're welcome to come to that meeting as well to get any other questions you might have answered.
Do you have a time on that yet?
6 o'clock, I believe.
Today?
March 26th.
Is there a warranty on road work?
There is. Yes, there is. In the municipal league. I know that it's there. To tell you exactly what it is, I can't do that right now because I don't know. But I know that over the last couple of months, we filled out paperwork through Michigan Municipal League for a road warranty program. What that all entails, I'm not certain, and we can get that answer for you so that you have that, but I know that that's out there.
It'd be a shame if in 2 years it just all fell apart.
Right.
You got to shoot us dead.
Lighting and trees, would you address that?
There is no plans for any change in lighting. You will see some change in lighting throughout town through a project that's going on with Consumers Energy. Most of our main roads in town, Michigan Avenue, Superior Street, I think, and I don't know exactly where else, are all getting LED lighting. If you drive down Michigan Avenue at night right now, Monroe Street has one of the new LED lights, and Huron Street has one of the new LED lights put up because the lights were bad. We called them in, and they came out and fixed them, and they put the new lights in instead of just putting a bulb in them. So, but over the summer, I don't know when it started, but in the next few months, you'll see that all of those lights on those main roads have turned to LED lights. So our hope would be to do that throughout the city because there's considerable cost savings to the city as a result of it. Right now, if I remember right, we pay roughly $180,000 a year to Consumers Energy for street lighting. And those LED lights significantly drop that amount. And so hopefully, with just the few that we have, that'll make a big difference as well.
We did get one crane over the drop.
Did you? Okay. Yeah. And I don't know, I can't tell you exactly where the planned changes are, and so that could be just the light was bad and they replaced it with LED, and they may do that as that happens.
That's what
right. The one I know Michigan Avenue was already planned, so I assume when they did Monroe Street and they did Huron Street, they did those because it was already planned to be done. But they might be doing other areas that, just as they get bad, just putting LED lights up. It would be nice to see them everywhere.
Is there better coordination with the utility companies involved, like the telephone, the cable, the things that they need to get done while this project's going there, like they need to lay a line for their internet.
Right. They've been contacted, but nobody's shown any interest.
This is why I'm asking.
Yeah, they're aware of the project, but nobody has any interest in doing any of that right now.
Like to just, can we back up to one of Media's points with the trees? Was there further questions?
Well, are there trees that will be taken out if we ask them to take them out? Junk trees?
There are not at this time. That is not in the plan. We do have 2 trees that we were asked to remove on North Street, and one is left to be done yet. We have, and I'll tell you, we have approximately 80 trees in the city that need either removed or need a lot of work. And funding for that has been difficult. We use some of solid waste. We usually get about $20,000 in our budget to use trees for a year. And to remove a tree, it costs about $1,400. So we have been very choosy about what tree is dangerous and how dangerous is it and what can we do, what can we afford. We are working again with Emily on mapping all of these trees. So if you have a tree complaint, that will go on our GIS system. We met today with a forester, where some of these trees have value. So we're trying to be creative in getting rid of these trees. Some of those trees have value. Good walnut, good oak. Some of the trees in our city have reached their maturity and really do need to be harvested. We need to take a look at all of those options so that we can get some of these trees that are bad out of there. So I guess to answer your question, we are working on that plan.
And we've been doing, Ken and I have been doing this now for 4 weeks, so I think we're making good progress so far, but it hasn't been long.
It's on the radar.
On the other hand of this opposite what you said, we're going to get a wider curve between the sidewalk and the curb now. Are there some places where people may want trees planted that are brand new for the future to line Irwin Avenue for greens, make it look nice and green and to the entrance to the city there? In other words, this might be something that we can plant some new trees there. And this extra space you're going to have, people may want some trees, this may be the perfect time, while everything else is torn up, to plant new trees up and down Irwin Avenue where people want them.
Yeah.
That's just an idea.
You had questions?
Yes. My question is, we got Orchard Drive connects to Irvin on one end and Eaton on the other end. Now, when Irvin Avenue first started getting rough in that area now, they took out Orchard Drive. It's just as bad now, just about as bad as Irvin Avenue. So now with Irvin shut down, it's going to be worse. Right? We got a lot of big potholes that wasn't there.
There are sections in there that we would like to be able to get the mill and fill done. There are some very good sections in that road, but when you get closer to Eaton Street, there's at least 2 that I know of, if not 3, that really do need to be milled. Currently, we don't have that equipment. One of the programs that Scott has been working on is we're able to get military-grade equipment for free through public safety programs that is obsolete equipment or equipment that the military is getting rid of. One of the things that we're looking at is getting our own milling machine to be able to do some of those things ourselves. So again, it's on the radar to do that. We know that it's bad. It's not a cold patch problem. We can't do that with cold patch, and that's what we have to use through the winter. That has to be a hot patch summer project that we look at here in the next couple of months to start filling and getting the roller out on that and putting it back to some reasonable shape until we can get to the point, and I can't say that that's going to be in the next 6 months that we get this equipment. We have to watch for it, put in for it, and then get it here. But we do have capable people within DPW that are willing to go to schools and learn this stuff and do it. I know that our street department gets pretty bad reputation sometimes when they see all the potholes and problem areas out there. But a lot of times our equipment is old. So we have two patch trucks that are going with 4 people. And they're throwing anywhere from 6,000 to 20,000 tons a week of cold patch right now. That's a lot. And they are moving, and we're trying to get more systematic about that. I know in the past what we've done is we'll get a complaint about a pothole on the north end of town, so you'll see a pothole truck going from the south end of town to fill one pothole to come back to the south end of town. We're not doing that anymore. Okay, so I keep saying it's on the radar, but I hope that you can trust us that really we are thinking about these things, and like Mike said, we live here too, and that's we're really looking into doing those things.
And so, if everybody doesn't know about cold patch and hot patch we can only get from May to early November, generally speaking. Hot patch, it's hot when it goes in the ground, it binds better with the pavement that's there, it makes a better seal, and it lasts a lot longer. Cold patch is kind of a temporary patch that we can put on in the wintertime, because we live in cold climate, that's all we can do. And so from November all the way to May, cold patch is the best we can do to fill potholes, and so we don't fill every little hole that there is out there with cold patch, because it's just going to come right back out, and it's not going to be any good. And so it's better to wait until May when we get the hot patch and get out there and actually fill the potholes the proper way so that they last a little bit longer than just fill them in temporarily with cold patch.
Which end are they going to start at? Are they starting at Superior and going to Woodlawn?
We don't know that exactly yet. They said the road itself will be torn up the entire length pretty quickly, from what I understand. So the entire road will be from by July 1st, I would imagine. And then from there, which way they start with the water main, I'm not sure which end was first. So I do know the west end obviously has a lot more work to be done with narrowing and new curves and so forth. So you'll probably see a lot of work being done out there initially, and less work being done at the other end. But then again, it depends on the contractor. They might work with pipe on one end and curves on the other end. It's just hard to say where they'll go.
Will there be water shut-offs then, like during the day, or?
We're not certain how that's going to go yet, but
okay.
In replacing the main that's there will stay until we change that over.
Generally, in Superior Street, when they ran Superior Street, they put the entire main in. If you don't mind, they put the entire main in. DEQ has rules to disinfect it, for lack of a better word. And that's 2 or 3 days.
Okay.
So they do all that.
Yeah.
And then they came down, and this sounds really stupid, it looks stupid to me, but they do it. They dig the hole, they put the main in, they fill it all back in. They disinfect the main. Then after they've done that, then they start back at the beginning, and they dug in each house or each business and ran each line, tapped each line. Mr. Cascarelli's not here, is he? That was one of the more. But in each case, usually what we ended up doing is we ended up going in and saying, hey, look, your water's going to be off for the next couple hours.
Okay.
And then at that point, they tapped it, they had their line in, they tied it together.
Right. And so you have to imagine it like this. If they dig that trench the whole way, then you've got to trench down that whole road for days while they do this sanitizing of this main. And then they have to retap and run all those lines. So by law, they can't technically leave that hole open overnight. They have to fill that hole in at night. So the reality is you put the main in, you fill it back in as you go along, then you get it all tested, ready to go, and then you go back and dig the services.
So
that's why it takes a little longer.
to explain that a little better, they'll have water.
Yeah,
you'll have water, you'll have your existing
You
water.
hook this one up. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You'll actually,
They'll
those
main
mains
all
will be
that
fine.
They tell us like,
All of
how, you know, that.
It'll be quick. You wouldn't know the difference probably.
2 to 3 hours. It's fine.
Hey, Jay, is the diagramming on Irwin in terms of the water much better than Superior was in terms of surprises? I know you can't control everything. I mean, there's a possibility that you're going to hit one. I I know.
You said much, I don't know about much.
Okay.
It is better.
Okay.
It is better.
It's kind of a mess, but.
I know it's a I mean, personal experience of
They're
my
also,
dad, but I know that in his talk with Superior, it's kind of a crapshoot where something might be.
yeah.
I mean, there's always that possibility that we can run into that, right, from time to
The
time.
engineers did one very good thing this time. I'm nowhere near as smart as them, but they talked to me 2 weeks ago. When they did Superior Street, the contractor was talking to me when he was digging.
Okay.
So when I was saying to him, I can't shut this main down, he was saying, why not?
Yeah.
Whereas to the engineer 2 weeks ago, I said, I can't shut.
Right.
Also on Irwin, your line is a little bit newer.
Yeah.
You already have valves broken in the off position. And most of you already know you have less pressure than everybody else. I'll tell you that right now. If you don't know it, well, you'll find out. But, so I know those are broken in the off position, and they will be fixing them.
Right, and so you won't have those issues
Yeah,
anymore.
so you won't have them, but I do,
Yeah.
there are,
I mean, and as fire chief, that's one of my big concerns, is being able to get enough water to where I need it at any given time. We had that garage burn down on Adams Street a few years ago, and we had a horrible time getting water from those hydrants. And that's the other thing I'm excited about, is every single one of those fire hydrants is gonna be replaced as well. So I won't have any trouble with those working when I need them to work either. So.
And you gotta understand, we're being overly inclusive with who we're bringing in to talk. Jay is our water foreman, Mike is the supervisor, superintendent, and I'm acting as director. We are all acting, but you know, we're all being involved in these meetings so that Jay knows the system and knows where valves are broken. We're getting him in right away, and so those questions shouldn't be a big concern down the road.
Question, will they be getting new, everybody getting new shut-off valves, replace the ones that are there, that are old, that they're...
everybody on Irwin will have a new city shut-off valve in the street.
Good, good. That's between the sidewalk and the curb, basically.
Between the sidewalk and the curb, yes.
I know a lot of those is hard to work and,
Yes.
okay, great.
Those will all be brand new.
Will there be some type of liaison between city people and residents?
We have on Facebook, the DPW site, I would encourage, or a Facebook page, I would encourage you, all of you, to like it, friend it, whatever. I will do my best to post as much as information as I can on that. It's on Facebook, it's on the...
What's it under?
Albion, Michigan Department of Public, Albion, MI, Department of Public Services.
Scott made it up for me, so...
I pushed him for a while to do it, and then when they made me interim manager last time, I just did it myself.
But we'll try to keep everything as upfront and out there. And then on that platform too, you have the opportunity to ask questions, to send messages, and really I try not to keep it on my phone because it dings all the time when you do that. So, but it is on, I can get it onto the office computer and be watching it. I usually read it at night when I'm home.
Well, obviously, the Irwin Avenue garage sale's not gonna happen. What I'm saying, since we have done this for 29 years, we have 6 block captains that are in charge of our block. So, for example, this meeting tonight, everyone on Irwin Avenue, through their block captains, got a letter about this meeting. Now, if you ever need to use our services again to let people know, you know, perhaps a cover sheet of beginning and ending dates, we can get those to the people.
Who do we...
Karen Yankee.
Is that why? Obviously.
My dad's the other
But
one.
you are the
Well,
head of the
Will
group.
Culps and I, and
Okay.
Media's been working on it, Martha
dad's
Fitch,
one of the other
Okay.
Pat Hyatt,
I'm just
Yvonne
writing down.
Starr.
I'm just writing down here.
Yeah.
But either, we'll, We'll get you.
We can put information out that way, and not everybody has a computer to get on there, so.
Right.
But feel free, I've got a stack of business cards for the city, it says superintendent on it, I'm gonna leave them up here or whatever, feel free to take it, it has my cell phone on it. I mean, you know, if there's a concern, I know, but it goes to voicemail too. If there's a concern, I want to change some things and make us more available.
Thank you.
And so like I said, here they are. There's probably not enough for everybody, but you can find it on the website as well.
We know where you work.
And you know where we work. I'm not there all the time, but Scott is.
I would also like to thank Chief Skip Kit for doing this YouTube tonight. When I was talking to Dee Dee, we talked about having a secretary take notes and all that, but this is really great. And I just really am happy that you're all here and that we have this meeting, so people know.
Well, I'm happy to see so many people turn out. It's great when we get this kind of turnout. I love doing this stuff for people when they're interested in what's going on.
Just a bug in your ear. When you were talking about doing the driveway aprons and not being able to drive on them for possibly 5 days, for most of us, walking a block, parking away is not a big deal. Have we given any consideration to handicapped people in that area that will not be able to park a block away?
I guess, no, but we can look
Okay,
into that.
that's a consideration, because I know there are at least 2 people in that area that must park next to the front door.
Okay. Don't know what we can do about driving over
I
cement.
don't, well,
That's the only problem.
maybe you could put a wooden one through the yard to the side or something.
So it's cement they're going to put in the apron then? Do you know how big or how much?
Should be the same as they are currently, I believe.
Well, mine's blacktop, so I don't know.
Oh, okay.
The cement's usually a 4-inch base as well.
4 inch. I'm just asking how long, you know.
Well, it'll be an approach it'll be the approach basically in the easement from the road to the sidewalk. So that's what we consider the approach.
Everything up to the sidewalk will be taken out and replaced.
We don't have.
Well, there still is an easement.
Yeah, there's still.
So I think it's 10 feet.
I know there's an easement, but I didn't.
I think it's 10 feet or something like that.
With cement.
Give or take a foot.
I was gonna say, but you're not replacing the curb, so when you approach into a driveway, if the driveway is blacktop or whatever, like 707 Irwin.
Right, no,
That
you would
would
be touched.
That won't be touched. But if you're west of Woodlawn, the whole thing will be replaced.
Yeah, so this is going to, yeah.
707.
We're west of Woodlawn. No, Woodlawn's up by us. Yeah, we're
there.
yeah. I have a question
Ladies and
about
gentlemen, please.
when you are doing from Superior going down, what about the houses or the people live on, coming from Manor and the next one, Woodlawn? How are they gonna get out?
The road will be accessible 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Except for a few exceptions when they're actually putting holes in the ground to put the pipe in. You might not be able to cross right in front of your driveway when that's being done, but that'll just be a temporarily maybe 4 or 5 hours at the most. But at night, all holes will be filled in, the road will be completely drivable every night. So,
Okay, because
with
we had
very
that
few
problem
exceptions.
when you did
Right,
the Crescent Drive.
yep,
At least we could cross,
yep,
you know,
right.
walk.
The whole road will be able to be driven on most of the time. So they have to make it accessible to emergency vehicles. And so I've got to be able to get my biggest fire truck down there at any given time. So.
So what about question number 4?
Will utility services be redone?
No, just water is the only thing that's being done right now. Water and then some of the storm drains will be redone, but those are the only utilities that are, any work's being done to.
One more question. Off of Irwin Avenue, if you go behind, there's a drainage. Has anyone ever taken care of that or checked it?
On the south side? Where? The pond off the south side of drainage?
It's right behind, I want to say that Jimmy Short's house.
Okay.
And then behind mine's off of Crescent Drive.
Mm-hmm.
There's
a retaining pond, or a water, stormwater retention pond? Is that?
I don't know if that's the
Is that what it
It's
is?
like
Yeah.
the one in the street.
I don't know of a maintenance program right now for any retention ponds, but if that's something we need to look at, I'll make a note of it. And
No one ever checked it, and once before I called and said something about there being a fire hydrant also back there. Somebody from the city said they didn't even know it was one back there. So it was decoration.
No, it's not decoration. There is a water line that runs back there.
there is a water line that runs back there. Is there a problem with the retention pond, or just you're wondering if it's checked on?
If it's checked on, because a lot of times when I'm getting water, coming up, it's like it's coming from a drain that messed up the basement.
Okay.
But the insurance say it's one thing, city says something else, so who have to put the bill?
And then that was on.
It might have been when they built the houses back in there, then they had to.
You have a groundwater issue or a sanitary backing up into your house?
It was kind of a mixture. They checked into it. And then somebody came and did the one in the middle. The drain that's on the outside of the street, accessible. Because every time it rains, like now, when I go home, I'm driving through like a small swimming pool.
Okay.
And that's what I asked when he was doing that street.
The storm sewers, yeah.
Would they have that raised? And they said, no, it would be corrected, but you can stand right there in front of 1203, and you can see the street going down. And they have that with the rain, the snow, whatever.
Is there a storm sewer that's blocked down there with something? I mean, is there a sewer for that to run to, and it's blocked
Yes.
with leaves and debris?
A lot of times it's not blocked, it's just not pushing around to it.
Oh,
It
okay.
just settles
So the
right
grain's
there in the
not right
driveway.
into the drain.
When it's freeze, it's ice.
Okay, we'll look into it.
And I called someone about it needed repairing, and I finally got that done after several years.
Okay.
There are block sewers, the one on Crescent, the one on Woodlawn, the one on, the couple of, because they've got leaves, nobody picked up their leaves.
That's another
And
problem
they
that needs
left,
addressed
a
in the
lot of the
city, is
people
leaf
left
pickup.
them in the streets. And instead of cleaning that all up, they
Right.
just raked them.
So we have major problems with the
And I
leaf
have
pickup.
cleaned it up several times.
All they had to do was.
Getting out there with a shovel. And then when it piles up, and I have pictures after pictures.
Okay.
And they're saying, then one spot where when I cleaned it, it was cigarette ashes in the leaves. I do not smoke.
Okay. Ma'am, what is your address?
1212
1212 Crescent?
Crescent Drive, right in the curve.
We'll come down and take a look and see what we can do.
Okay, I've had some people not too long ago, finally got someone, and he helped me. He told me to get out the water, he'll do it. Because I'm like, just like a flood.
We'll get down there, and it'll be within the next week.
Okay.
This is sort of off the beaten path, but somebody mentioned leaf pickup. Is there gonna be, because this winter, I mean, you go down the streets there all over the place. Is there gonna be like a pickup for all that winter residue left over? Or are we putting it in bags for Granger and it's, or,
That is basically our pickup at this point, is Granger.
Because that wet stuff is hard to get in those bags, and they aren't picking it up unless it's bagged, and it's
grant supposed to get up in the spring.
Right, look, they just say right off when they start picking up.
April.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't see that one then. Thank you.
In regards to the leaf pickup, this has kind of been a little project tonight, but because of what's going on, I'd let it delay. On March 18th, I went before the city council to ask that a committee be formed of citizens, a couple of people from the city, I mean constituents. I'd be glad to work on it. Someone from the city to look into what we could do to bring back the annual leaf pickup. And then, you know, because I was told whatever, and but I thought if some heads got together, we could go to, you know, wherever and try to find money, grants, to help bring that back.
And the only thing I can say about that right now is we're learning. That might be harder to do than you think. We got a letter from the DEQ the other day that basically said what we're doing with our tree dump is illegal and we can't do that anymore. And so, yeah. So it's another thing on our 4 weeks of doing this together that, yeah, we're learning quick. And so we don't have good answers yet for that. We're not saying it's not, I don't want to bring that up and say the tree dump's done, but we're working on it. We're trying to come up with solutions. But the state is coming down heavily in regulations.
You want to give out free mulch?
Yeah, right.
Are they saying that you can't take leaves
Seriously,
with
you got a ton of people that would take free mulch.
Right. Well, we probably have a ton of topsoil down there too for people that need topsoil, but the question is how we get it out of there.
Right, so because it's got to be done by state standards.
Right.
So what are they saying about the tree dump? I mean, what's illegal?
Basically, 75% of everything that goes in there has to go out within 3 years. So
it has to be turned, it has to be aerated, there has to be a nitrogen
Temperatures
ratio,
taken.
there has to be temperatures, there can't be water runoff, or you have to have a retention pond.
Yeah.
It's
complicated.
It's very complicated, it's a long process.
And basically, we're talking about, at a minimum, a full-time position to just do the work that needs to be done, not to mention being able to haul it out, where's it going, and what we're doing with it. It's a great idea if we could get it processed and done, and it could give a lot of services to the community between mulch and topsoil and that kind of stuff. But how we get started with it at this point, we're not sure yet. We're trying.
We just got the letter.
Surprise.
Oh, we got the inspection. They were real quick to get the letter to us after the inspection.
Got a question here, to play off this leaf thing. It was never, we were not told who's responsible for what. We were responsible for raking the leaves on our lawn, also between the sidewalk and the curb. Who was responsible for the leaves that fall on the city property, on the streets? We were told that's the city's, but what happens when the leaves on the top from Irwin Avenue come down to my house, from his house, and or whatever, anybody's house? Yeah, sorry. And then I get it. Am I responsible for those on the city property on the blacktop? Because I rake my lawn. And then last year, as you know, we had a corn crop because of the corn grain things coming through the detour. And you could pick corn along South Eaton Street there because the city didn't pick up, and it's filling the sewers. And
I will tell you that any of you are responsible for it, but we could use all the help that we could get. So any of you that are willing to help by going out there and picking those up for us, we thank you. If not, we will get our crews out there as soon as we can.
We have a street sweeper that's 13 years old, and we probably get an hour of use every 12 hours of maintenance.
Wow, I believe you.
Something breaks. Every time it goes out, something breaks on it. And,
Does the military have one we can get for free?
well, we watch closely. But I mean, I think that's probably a good ratio of downtime to use time with that street sweeper that we have. And it's just another one of those things that we have to address and we have to deal with. And it isn't fair for someone to go out and clean their gutter only to have a rain wash it to your drive again because inconsiderate neighbors above you didn't take care of theirs or it's not that they're inconsiderate, they just don't care about it. And it's not something that they just don't care about it. It's not a big deal. Well, it is to you because you clean yours. And it's a problem, and that's where the street sweeper, that cleaning really comes in. And that's what we did with the leaf pickup is, the bucket comes out, gets it all. Once the street's done, the street sweeper comes behind, and everything's clean for the year. Well, now we have, after this rain, driving here today, I thought my car was going to drown because we're going to have a lot of filled storm drains that we need to get back at.
Eating it over.
Well, and really, this has been our first warm rain that we've had. We've been frozen up until this week. So, and there's still ice, and I saw a guy fishing on Duck Lake today. I thought, what are you doing? But it's going out. So you'll see crews back out there. The other problem with that, though, I may sound like I'm making excuses, but we're 3 people down in the street department right now. We have been 2 people in each department down for probably the last year or so, I would say, in one department or multiple departments. So having the people to do the jobs has been an issue for us too. And then there's a training period where people need to, it may not sound like a lot to go out and clean a catch basin, but there is a training and education process for those employees as well. So believe me when I say in 4 weeks we've dealt with a lot, we're continuing to deal with a lot, we're looking at what we need to do. We've all of us live here in the town, and we do see it. It's frustrating to us as well.
And citywide, we're down to about 11 employees right now. Wow. I'm doing what I can to replace people.
Does the city have the money to replace people?
We have the positions. We just don't have the people to put in them yet. And with all the changes going on, it's just difficult to get that part done. I hired a new public safety officer 2 weeks ago, Brian Gandy, who's a former Taylor County Sheriff's deputy who just retired, came to work for us. So that'll be an easy one for me because he pretty much knows what he's doing already. He's got 27 years experience. But a lot of times we get new officers, it takes more time to get on the road. I got 2 other officers that I'm kind of hiring right now for positions that people either left or retired from. Like Ken said, technically, last I figured it was 7 positions in their department because Mike Lorkey here, Mike Riddle, the superintendents that I moved up as acting, nobody's filling their job. They're doing that job plus this one. Ken's the same way. Nobody's doing his previous job because he's only in an acting position. I'm doing 2 jobs. There's a lot of us at the city that are doing 2 jobs right now, just trying to get by until we can move on and get some stuff going. And it's happening. We're working on hiring people. We've got interviews set up, so some of these positions that are the hourly positions are going to be filled quickly. The department heads are a little harder to fill until we get a new city manager, but we'll get there.
The ranking for people that can't do it themselves, will that start, because like mine, they didn't get to do it before winter, they said it would start again in the spring? Will that start next month?
That was a Vista project, and we had that crazy weather, like when we scheduled it, we didn't end up doing it. Obviously, we can try and schedule something now. Definitely hearing interest from you guys. I will talk to the other Vistas. We'll try and get something rolling with the college and anybody who wants to help. We'll try and get something going. We have the list. If you were to sign up for the Amazing Rink, we have the list still from last year. So we've got that. We haven't really contacted anybody for the spring, but now that I'm definitely hearing it needs to be done, we will try and make it happen. I can't promise it, but we will try.
So back to Irwin Avenue, are there other questions? Because we understand the problems, and we obviously could go on all night. We don't want to do that, and we don't want to keep you here either. Are there other questions that people have regarding Irwin Avenue? We'd encourage you to be at the March 26th meeting. Mickey Bittner, who is with Whiteman & Associates, is a wonderfully nice guy. And he's been working in Albion for probably more than 20 years for us as our road infrastructure engineer and engineering firm. He knows I am amazed when I talk with him and oh yeah, I remember we did that bridge or we did this road or no, we didn't do that to that, but we did it to there. And so he knows our community real well, so if you have questions, he's going to be a valuable resource to ask those questions.
And I will also try, since this is my first attempt with the camera here, and that's another camera thanks to the United States military, I will try and possibly broadcast that live at the same time, but we'll just have to see whether I can get my technology working or not. So.
Okay, one comment. I know my father-in-law, my husband, quite a few people try and watch the city council meetings on YouTube. When somebody, you know, is addressing the mayor or someone, they speak up, but then they sit back and their voices do not carry and you cannot hear a lot.
I have been trying to figure out a microphone system for there. I don't know if you've noticed.
Back of the chair so they have to sit forward.
On occasion, or most of the time now, the city attorney is a little better, you can hear him. That's because I give him this little apartment that I have, and he wears that, and it actually gets his mic up a little bit, even when he sits back. But that is one of my biggest concerns, is trying to figure out how I can get that audio system working better. Where we run into problems is because it's so old. We have speakers in the room, and I can only turn it up so loud before it starts feeding back in the room, so I can't feed it out to the system going out on the video any louder without feeding it back into the room. And so,
representatives could even sit forward.
right, and we encourage every time. Len snuck out of the room, and I get on her all the time about it, but she's one of the worst about it, getting up to the microphone. They just don't think about it when they start talking because they're thinking about what they want to say. You know, a few of them do, but we encourage them doing it all the time.
Put a little note in front of them. Sit up.
But if we can get it, if I can get a new board to control the sound in there, where I can control the sound going out to the TV separate from what's going in the room, that would probably make a huge difference. So that's on the top of my list of things I want to get done, but yeah.
So cards with the phone number up here. I will do my best to get back with you in that day. But if I have to say, Mrs. Yankee, this is the 10th time you've called me today, you know, so please, but feel free to make contact with us and air your concerns. One of the worst things we can do is have rumors that aren't true continue to circulate. And we need to stop the rumor, and the only way you can do that is to call and get the truth from someone who knows it.
Yep.
We're all about what are you going to do for us? What can we do for you? Is there something
You got a vacation package?
that we as general citizens can do to make this easier for you?
Yeah.
Clean your gutters.
If you know the difference between brass, copper, and lead, if you go into your basement, look where it comes into your house, and if it's lead, call somebody and let them know. That'll make their budget better when they do this, because they ask me how many lead lines that come into the houses, and I know of one, but I don't know of any others.
By the end of this year, and by 2025, we have to identify every service in this town for the state of Michigan.
What is it you do to determine that?
Well, when you look at it, it's either going to be lead or copper.
To answer your question, when you figure that out, you let me know. And I will know how to do that.
If you take a sharp knife,
if you go downstairs and you
but if you go to your service where it comes in and you take a sharp knife and you scrape it and metal comes off of it, it'll be shiny where that's scraped off. Now copper will do that also a little bit. It won't shave off, but you'll see a copper color. Lead will actually just slide, it'll come right off and you will know that it's lead. Now if it's a galvanized pipe, it's not going to scrape. So that's the way to look at it, I think, in a simple way, and I think Jay is absolutely right. That would, if we can somehow, and we're working on ways to communicate, getting it out to the community, get help with that,
And maybe we can put some pictures up on our Facebook page and explain it to you.
And that's all of Albion, that's not just Irwin.
Right,
that's all.
specifically it would help with Irwin Ave, so we can talk
With
to
Irwin Avenue,
engineers.
they have to replace that service.
And
If it's lead.
Up to 18 inches
So-
in summer.
Can I be serious in answering your question, though? Having meetings like this, where we feel welcome, where we feel a part of the community, where we feel like we can walk out of here and not feel beat up. No, I'm just saying, that's important to us, because there's a lot of stress in our day, all day long. And to come to a meeting and feel welcome, to feel a part of it, and this has been great. So this is what we need.
Well, I know these two guys work there off every day.
Yes, they do.
So-
We have
Just because you sit behind
17.
your desk doesn't mean you're not working too.
I wish I had time to do that. I know what you mean. But yeah, so,
I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight, and I want to thank the people that are up here that are working on it. And we hope to have a good working relationship with you all through this whole deal.
Feel free to hang around, talk amongst yourselves, ask questions. I got the key, so I'll lock up when you all ready.
Thank you for our county commissioner coming out tonight too.
Yes, thank you, Gary.
Thank you, Governor.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you.